What is up everyone, Barricade here and bringing you guys another part of Gears of War Bloodlines. I know I've been making a lot of videos of this guys, but I believe this and maybe one more video will finish Gabe's part of the story. I'm thinking within the next 1 to 2 videos, and then after that we'll actually go back to Kate's part of the book, and I'm going to try to make that about 1 to 2 videos long because the last part of the book isn't very long. The reason why I had so many parts of this is simply because pretty much the majority of the book is about Gabe, but we're kind of getting close to the end here. I would say maybe about 4 or 5 more videos. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started here. In the last video, it ended with Gabe sitting at a tree as he wrote names of the missing and dead gears on a notepad. Out of nowhere, a shadow approached, and he saw that it was his engineer by the name of Gian. And she was standing there a little injured with her arm wrapped up when she got hurt. And Gabe just simply conversated with her, asking her how she was doing. She said that she'll live. And she actually mentioned the fact that they don't have any communication back to the cog, that they have no way to communicate. And Gabe asks her, well, what do you think? Do you have any ideas? Which she replies, yes. And her idea is simply to take several cog gear armor and take apart their comms from the armor itself and kind of fuse them all together to make this one giant comm that can boost the signal and potentially reach out back to the cog. Gabe loved this idea and he realized how smart it was. He volunteered his armor immediately, but Gian warned him right away that with this procedure, it could potentially ruin his comms or at the very least leave them semi-functional. She did admit though that she did need his specific comm because his frequency is the only one that would come up on the listening post at Vectis. And if they tried to use anyone else's, it wouldn't work. So Gabe was a little hesitant at first, but told her to do it anyways. One thing I wanted to mention is the fact that when they do this, they essentially have to take his armor apart. So he's maybe armorless for quite some time. When they started working on it, Gian mentioned as well that she needed another person's set of armor with their comms for it to work. Before anyone else could say anything, Wyatt volunteered and stated that he's okay with her using his armor. Before Gabe could argue, Wyatt stated the fact that since he's a spec ops, his signal also comes up on the listening comms and would appear on Vectis. So having 2 sets of comms this way would be very useful. And he's used to not getting shot anyway, so he'll be fine with a sense of confidence. Before Gabe could say anything, both Gian and Wyatt started taking the armors apart to try to make this comm. Gabe went to check on the other gears while they worked on it, and after some time had passed, Gian and Wyatt came up to Gabe and told him that they were able to fix it, and that they actually had Hoffman on the line. Gabe was happy at first until he realizes that Gian and Wyatt have a sense of dread in their expression. He goes to speak with Hoffman, and Hoffman explains that while they're battling on Knifespire, a new emotion source was found. That essentially inside of the cathedral, the big cave, when the explosions and the battles and everything happened, it uncovered an unknown source of emotion and no one else knew before, and that the UIR was going to claim it, and they want them to claim the island first. Gabe explained that they're almost out of resources, they don't have anything to fight back with, and they would need help to even potentially have a chance to even survive. Hoffman states that he will send a fleet, and they will come to pick him up and everyone else up within the next 20 hours, and that they need to be ready to fight. Gabe is a little hesitant at this point and says, why not just go straight to Knifespire and ignore us? And which Hoffman replies, like it or not, you are an expert on the place now, Diaz. You have the latest intel and know the current lay of the land. We're counting on you to lead this effort and keep the enemy from securing the island. If we can keep them from digging in, we just might have a chance when the larger fleet arrives. Which Gabe simply tells him, they're going to have a 20-hour head start. We're not going to have a chance. We're going to get massacred. And all Hoffman could say was, we have to try. So now Gabe and everyone that just barely escaped Knifespire is going to have to go back and secure an emotion source. And at this point he felt really conflicted because he knew that his gears were going to be unhappy. They're tired, they're weak, they already went through several battles, and now they're going to be taken right back into one. He told Hoffman that he'll talk to him again in 1 hour and cut the comms before Hoffman could say anything. Gabe walked towards his gears and gave them a little speech here that I'm going to read that I actually really like here. He simply walks up to his gears and he says, "I'm afraid I have to ask even more of you. It seems the source of emotion has been spotted on Knife Spire. Every last ship Vectis has and more are on the way. But even that won't be enough. It's not rescue we're waiting for. It's our ride. We're going back. In 20 hours, a fleet will pick us up and take us to that island once again. This time, we're going to stay." As he's giving this speech to the soldiers, he noticed that Cyprian has left and no longer helping the gears. He seems to have went back to his village. Gabe tells Blair to get ready to come with him, and they're going to follow Cyprian. And he tells the other gears to get ready and to be ready at a moment's notice. A few gears complain, saying that the other cog soldiers aren't going to be coming for over 20 hours, which Gabe says, "You have your orders, just listen." And they do. As Gabe starts walking through the forest back to the village to track Cyprian, Blair is confused and asks him, "What are we doing? What's happening?" And Gabe says, "I have a hunch. I have a hunch about Cyprian." And they make their way back to the village, and they can see that all the villagers are looking at Cyprian's hut, and they all seem really angry and concerned, holding weapons. And the leader of the village, the old lady from before, is speaking to the villagers, and Gabe can barely understand her language, but he understands 2 words from what she is saying. The 2 words were gear and hostage. At this point, Gabe grew concerned because he wasn't sure who exactly was the hostage in this situation. Was it Cyprian or was it the gear? So he followed up to the crowd of people and tried to speak with the leader of the village. He showed his respect by offering his weapons and asked if he can go to the hut. As he was walking towards the hut, about halfway up to it, he could hear Wyatt speaking, and Wyatt simply said, "You were right, brother. Come on up. You have to see this." And when he's making his way to the hut, the leader of the village sends one of her men with him, and they walk together. Once they make it to Cyprian's home, it's empty, and all they can see really is just a few of his own little furniture, a chair, a desk, a notepad, a cup full of pens, and on the notepad is actually entries of when the cog passed by the island, where they're going, and everything that proves that Cyprian has been selling out the cog. And Gabe even recognizes the candle that was sitting next to Cyprian's window. It was the light that he saw when they passed by Adena, when they were going back to Knife Spire during the middle of the night. So at this point, Gabe has finally realized that this man is the person that has been selling them out. Gabe spoke with Wyatt, and Wyatt explained that there's something that he needed to see, and it gets worse and worse as they go on. As they're going through the hut, they do in fact find Cyprian hiding, and he's cowering and blubbering, scared and shaking because he's been caught. Wyatt reveals that under the floorboard is in fact a radio that has been used to contact the UIR, and even since they've reached the island, he has been feeding them information, letting them know that the cog is there. It gets worse though. Wyatt hands Gabe a pair of night vision goggles that have a green tint to it. If you don't recall, Cyprian spoke of someone using night vision goggles that killed a young boy in the village. In fact, it was Cyprian himself. He would go out in the middle of the night to speak with the UIR, to feed them information, to give them what they wanted. And apparently he was caught by this young boy in the middle of the night, and Cyprian killed him to silence him. They find a piece of cloth that inside of it has a bloody machete. The blood is dry, but it's proof that he killed the young boy. When Gabe's escort sees this, he freaks out, runs out of the hut, and whistles loudly. This alone is enough to let the villagers know what is happening. He can hear commotion coming from the village, and even someone screaming out in grief. Wyatt attacks Cyprian, holding him down, putting his pistol to his head, and screams at Gabe that he is a spy, and a murderer as well. Gabe needs to get a hold of the situation because they need to keep him alive, at least for now. Gabe tells him to calm down and asks him what has Cyprian done so far, what has he told the UIR since they got to the island. And Wyatt explains that Cyprian has told him everything, that the cog is sending a fleet back to Knife Spire, that there is a pack of emulsion there, that they're going to try to take the island. And the worst part off is that when the cog sends this fleet, they're going to leave Vectis, their main base, unprotected, and that the UIR knows this now. Cyprian has told them everything. Wyatt and Blair were very concerned because now that the UIR knows their plan, they could easily be defeated. Gabe explained that he let Cyprian tell the UIR their plan, and the reason being was because now they were going to use that information to trick the UIR. Instead of going to the island in 20 hours, they're going to show up earlier, within 5 hours. This will be an amazing tactic to throw the UIR off. Wyatt was still extremely angry that they had this man that has been selling them out right at his fingertips, and he really wanted to kill him. Gabe explained to Wyatt that he needed to let Cyprian live, because now the villagers were upon them, pointing their weapons on them, and they wanted Cyprian. The matriarch, the leader, the old lady of the village, walked up to Cyprian as he cowered on the floor, and simply stated that she names him as a murderer and spits on the ground angrily. Gabe talks to her and explains that, yes, he did kill one of your own, but he also is responsible for the death of a lot of gears by selling out the cog. She looked back at Gabe and simply stated that the revenge was theirs to exact, and he understood. He stated that he simply just needed some help, and she agreed to give them medicine and anything that they need. Gabe explained that he needed a little more, some clothes that the fishermen wear, and also boats. She complied and gave him 10 boats and the clothes they need to disguise themselves. Gabe spoke with his men and simply explained that they are actually going a lot sooner, and the whole 20 hours thing was a lie to catch a UIR spy. After this, Gabe spoke with Hoffman and Phillips on the improvised comms that Guillen worked on. He explained the situation, and he explained that they should not send the fleet to Knifespire because Vectis will be attacked by the UIR. He also explained that they were going to be leaving to Knifespire themselves on the fishing boats a lot sooner. Phillips gets angry and asks Gabe, "What the hell did you do, Diaz?" Which Gabe simply replies with, "The only thing that makes sense." And she gets even angrier and says, "You are not the one giving orders." Which Hoffman, sitting there listening to the conversation, simply says, "I don't know, Phillips. Seems like he is." Some time has passed, and now they are on the way to Knifespire. One thing Gabe notices right away is he can see that the island itself is shrouded by a cloud. At first he thought it was something natural until he realized it really wasn't. It was something far familiar to him. It was the fumes of emulsion. The UIR had already started refining the area. Everyone was scared at first because they knew that going into that cloud with all the emulsion fumes could lead to rustlung and sickness. But Gabe told everyone that they have to use it as cover, to use it as a way to sneak in, unseen, to conserve ammo and mostly use their lancer bayonets when necessary, and only ammo when it was extremely necessary. As they approached the island, Gabe could see that the cloud itself was very thick. It was covering most of the island, and he could catch glimpses of Gatka Ridge and the cathedral and other parts of the island through it, but it was so thick that it almost looked completely shrouded. As they approached the island, Gabe noticed that there were several boats already at Knifespire from the UIR, including a major battleship. He told everyone to slow down and only go at half speed so they can approach the island slowly and without as much sound. Gabe was thinking what to do next when he heard someone calling him on his comms. It was someone from the cog, and they simply stated that they have several Corva boats coming to their position, and within 15 minutes both Gabe and his squad alongside these new Corva boats that are sent by the cog should touch down on the island. But their major concern was that battleship. The Corva boats are very powerful and could in fact take down the battleship that the UIR has, but only if they have a clear shot, and it's very hard to see during that horrible mist coming from the emulsion fumes. Destroying this battleship was crucial to this fight, so Gabe devised a plan to use his armor to send out a signal to give a clear shot for the Corva boats to destroy the battleship. But once he stated this idea, everyone understood that this was a good idea, but they also understood that this could be a one-way trip. It was extremely dangerous, and whoever made their way straight to the battleship could easily die. Gabe volunteered himself, but Wyatt actually interrupted and stated that he should be the one to do it, that he's a ghost, that he knows how to survive something like this, and also that they need Gabe on the front lines leading the charge. Gabe first argues back with this, but Wyatt, his brother, will not let up and lets him know that he can do it. Gabe is very scared and concerned, but ultimately decides to let his brother take this mission. He gives his brother a bomb and tells him that if Plan A, which is to have the Corvo boats attack the battleship, fails, to use this bomb to destroy the battleship himself. At first, Wyatt says, "Oh, I don't like thinking past Plan A." But you, Gabe, you always have Plan B, Plan C, and all the way through the damn alphabet. You never change, brother. And Gabe simply says the same back to him. Gabe gives his brother a hug, which Wyatt hugs him back. And Gabe tells him, "You don't have to prove yourself, you know that, right?" Because Wyatt growing up was always the type of kid to try to prove himself in every way and shape or form that he could. Wyatt simply says, "I know, but I like to add to the legend a little bit." And Wyatt leaves. As he leaves, Gabe lets the Corvo boats know their plan and to be ready within 15 minutes. Shortly after that, Gabe could see Wyatt approaching the battleship, but everything started to go to hell right away. As Wyatt was approaching, they could see that all the boats started pulling away from the shore and going out into the open sea. This is where Gabe horribly miscalculated. What he saw before, or what he thought he saw before, was the battleship with several UIR frigates, so not too many boats. But once they pulled out of the shore and into the open water, Gabe could see that it was actually a battleship with 10 UIR frigate boats near it as well. There was too many of them, and what Wyatt was doing at this point was extremely dangerous. But he had to. It was necessary for any chance of victory, and it was all luck now. Gabe hoped that they simply just wouldn't see him approaching. As Gabe and his boat started approaching towards the shore, he hoped that the UIR would be tricked and think that they were simply fishing boats from Adena. But the UIR was too smart for this and started opening fire on top of Gabe and his boats. His captain, Graham, took a hit to the shoulder and started bleeding immensely, but kept his hand on the steering wheel as everyone took cover. He screamed that they were going to be hitting land within a few seconds and to be ready. Once they hit the ground, it was a hellscape of battle and blood and bullets flying from the shoreline. The UIR had themselves posted and they were ready. They were unloading as much bullets as they possibly could at the cog approaching from the beach. Several soldiers died and Gabe could hear their screams as they fell down. So one thing I wanted to clarify real quick before we proceed in the story here is when I was reading the book, when they started talking about the Corvas, it sounded like they were talking about boats, but later in the book they mentioned them to be helicopters. So I wanted to actually fix that real quick before I proceed with the story. So every time you heard me say Corva boat, I apologize. That was actually a Corva helicopter. Alright, let's continue with the story. Once on the shore, Gabe had to use a piece of driftwood to take cover. It took bullets from the UIR on the island, and also he had to simply hide and survive from the shellings coming from the frigates and also from the battleship. Gabe was worried about his brother and hoped that he could simply complete his mission to save their lives. After a while, Gabe could hear that the Corva pilots driving the helicopters announced in the comms that the beacon has arrived and they know exactly where to attack the battleship. Gabe pleaded to himself and hoped that they would be destroyed soon. After some time, the pilots started screaming that there was anti-air coming from the battleship and to abort. Gabe screamed through the comms to not abort, to destroy the battleships, or we're all dead. They listened to Gabe, and Gabe could hear the screams of various pilots as their helicopters were destroyed by the UIR's anti-aircraft weapons. After some time, Gabe could hear one of the pilots scream that he let his torpedo go. But unfortunately, before he could get the shot perfectly, the helicopter was shot down. And the torpedo did hit one of the UIR frigates, but not the battleship. They had missed. Gabe panicked and went on the comms screaming for Wyatt, asking him if he had made it out. Had he survived? Nothing. Gabe looked back at his main gear Blair for assurance, and she simply stared back at him, and they both knew what to do next. They had to take the island, and they rushed up the shore, straight at the UIR. Blair screamed grenades to her fellow gears, and they started throwing grenades, including Gabe. Gabe's grenade actually took out a turret, killing several UIR soldiers. After this, he stopped yet again and tried to raise Wyatt on the comms, screaming, "Are you there, brother? Please, reply!" But nothing. Blair actually knocked Gabe to the ground, saving his life from a grenade that landed near him. She screamed, "Snap the fuck out of it! He's gone! We got to get onto this ridge, or we will be too! Now move! Make it fucking mean something, goddammit!" That right there, I just want to say really quick, is what makes Blair such a good character. She is his second in command, and she listens to everything he has to say. But when he strays and doesn't listen, and in this case where he basically was throwing his life away trying to reach out to his brother, she snapped him out of it. It made him focus. Next, Gabe grabbed a rocket launcher and shot at the UIR as they all approached and attacked in this great battle. Gabe realized that before, when they were on the beach, they were easy targets, but now it is equal footing, and they're ready to fight. Gabe had grown a new resolve as he rushed towards the enemy. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. If you guys like this video, please definitely hit that like button and subscribe and tell me what you guys think about Gears of War Bloodlines, the novel. I really love reading this book, honestly. I think this is probably one of the better books in the novel series. And in the next video, we're going to actually finish off Gabe's part of the story. I'm just going to try to include it all in one video. And then after next week's video, it's going to go back to Kate and follow her story after she found out about Gabe's past. Thanks for watching, guys, and take it easy. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see my most recent Gears of War video, hit that link on the left. If you want to see any of my other content, hit that link on the right. Thanks for watching, guys.